Hello everyone, so I've got a few 15mm vehicles finished for the game of AK-47 Republic. As you may know, I am putting together another force for the game. Still an enthusiast of the original AK-47 rules that came out in the 1990s, but there is a third edition about to be released. It's already out in PDF and should be the hard copy should be published in a couple of weeks' time, by the end of August 2025. We're in mid-August at the moment. So that's kind of, prompted me to go back and paint some more figures. But as I say, I am still very much AK-47 Republic Original Edition loyalist. I'll give the new set of rules, the third edition, a go. May well enjoy them as well. But can't really think of any reason why, having got the original rule set and been such a keen fan of it, that I would, want to change my allegiance at this date. But it was an excuse to start up another warband, and I'm trying to do a sort of colonial settlers warband, so I'm basing it loosely on the Rhodesian forces. These vehicles are all painted up in my interpretation of what the Rhodesian army camouflage looked like. Now, Peter Big do a very comprehensive range of modern wars, African modern wars figures to go alongside their rules, and that includes a number of vehicles. I wanted to sort of branch out a little bit, though, because their vehicle range is by no means as comprehensive as their figure range anyway. The three vehicles you see there are Peter Pig vehicles. They describe them as bulldogs. They look more to me like buffaloes, so it's a mine-resistant armoured personnel carrier. As I say, I'm no expert, never claim to be an expert in these matters, but looking at online photographs and things, they look a lot more like the buffalo than they do the bulldog. So we'll just call them a mine-resistant armoured personnel carrier and leave it at that. So yeah, these are in the Peter Pig range. I wanted to get some alternative vehicles as well. Now, in the past, I would have resorted to quick reaction force. Again, as you may know from some of my previous videos, this year there has been a lot of disruption with quick reaction force and a lot of public animosity displayed between the old owner and the new. Back in April, Jeff Titchener, who is the old owner of Quick Reaction Force, which not only do they do World War II vehicles, they do a very comprehensive range of modern vehicles, and they also, unfortunately for me, market the Freikorps range of 15mm figures, of which I'm a big fan. But anyway, sticking with the modern vehicles, back in April, the old owner, Jeff Titchener, posted on Facebook an open page which I was able to read because I don't subscribe to Facebook, so I can't read the sort of private mails that appear on that platform. But he said that from that month, the person that he had passed the Quick Reaction Force brand and range onto no longer had the license to sell the ranges any longer, and that if he were to do so, it would be deemed piracy. Back in August, it was still possible. So after that announcement, but in August, it was still possible to go onto the Quick Reaction Force website and purchase products on that website. That having been said, the website itself was chaos, absolute chaos, very difficult to navigate. And sorry, did I say August earlier? I meant about a month ago. We're in August at the moment, about a month ago. And then the website suddenly disappeared completely. So you couldn't get it at all. And I'd sort of assumed that was because of this spat that was going on. For legal reasons, the new owner, Harry Dowden, wasn't allowed to sell the products anymore, so there was no point in having a website. But looking again today, the website is back in the same format as it was before, so it hasn't been improved. It is dreadful to find your way around. And the page on Facebook that I was referring to earlier seems to have disappeared. So I don't know, I can't tell you whether the argument has been resolved, whether it has been resolved through mutual agreement or through legal action and a legal decision. I just don't know. All I can tell you is that the website, as it stands at the moment, is very, very difficult to buy. To find the product that you're after to buy it. I can't tell you what your experience would be if you do manage to make a purchase. I haven't got any funds in my bank account at the moment till the end of the month. Next month, I'm going to try and buy some Fracall figures from them. Just make a tentative purchase and see, if my purchase comes through, how long it takes, etc., etc. So I can't give you any guidelines on that. But what I can tell you is that not only is the website impossible to navigate, very difficult to navigate, but it is impossible to find any of QRF's modern vehicles on there. I've tried page after page after page, can't find them at all. All there seems to be nowadays is the sort of Second World War vehicles, of which there is kind of a very comprehensive range. So QRF would have been, as I say, my go-to range to get alternative vehicles to the Peter Pig range. At the moment, even though they seem to be up and trading again, they don't seem to be selling any of their really splendid modern vehicles, which to me was the prime feature. It was the prime function of QRF. It was to sell those modern vehicles. They do lots of other things as well, but I always, regarded them as being a supplier of modern vehicles, so they were perfect for AK-47. So anyway, I'll let you know how I get on with buying the American Civil War figures later. It's not relevant to this, but just to say, very long and roundabout way of telling you that having got these 3 pig figures here, I couldn't get any more from QRF, so I went to Butler's printed models. So these are the 9 vehicles here, are all Butler's printed models. So you have another mine-resistant armoured personnel carrier at the back here. This is known as a crocodile, and this was the Rhodesian Army's standard mine-resistant vehicle, personnel carrier. I believe it's still used by the Rhodesian Army to this day. So it's now, when Rhodesia became Zimbabwean, so it's now used by the Zimbabwean Army today. And then in front here you have three versions of the Panhard, which was known as the Eland 90. So it has a sort of a souped up cannon on it, and then you have three ferrets next to them there. Don't really know, I'm not too sure whether there were any actually in the Rhodesian Army. As I say, my colonial settlers force is only going to be very loosely based on the Rhodesian forces anyway, but it's, you know, it's fairly reasonable to assume that they did have some ferrets in kicking around somewhere that they could employ. Now, you may be looking at those, if you're familiar with Peter Pig's range of models, you may be looking at those and saying, well, hang on, don't Peter Pig do a Panhard that is very similar to that? And in fact, yes, they do. I've got one here that I'll just put in front there that you can see. And it's a very nice model indeed. And it would do very well as the Land 90. I didn't realise that at the time that I made the purchase from Butler's Printed Models. And if I would have, you know, if I were able to put the clock back, I would have bought three more of these rather than buying the Butler's Printed Models. At this point in time, it's appropriate time to say that the Butler's Printed Models are all right, but they're nowhere near as nice as QRF or Peter Pig. I made the mistake, and I should have known better because I have made purchases from Butler's Printed Models before now. I've got quite a lot of things from them in the past, that they do two standards of model. They do the sort of plain model, and they do a resin model. The resin model is more expensive, but it is much crisper, you know, and better detail on it, a nicer all round. The models I bought, the standard version, and they're a 3D print. They come encased, absolutely enclosed in this wash sort of honeycomb that you have to break off the models. It's very difficult. You have to use quite a lot of force to get it off, and the pressure that you apply risks you transferring that pressure to the more delicate parts of the model. So the overhead sort of supports on these crocodiles, virtually all of them snapped off while I was trying to get this honeycomb off. Things like the finer details, like the searchlights on the Panhards, the small gun on the ferrets, you know, very, very precarious. The fenders on the crocodiles as well, managed to break one of those and had to do it back on. So if you're buying from Butler's Printed Models, they are really, I don't really know that of that many other decent 15mm ranges. If QRF aren't available, I can't think of any other where to go anyway. But if and when you do go to Butler's Printed Models, definitely it's worth investing a little bit more money in getting the resin. Having said all that, though, I'm pretty happy with the way they've painted up. I'll give you a little zoom in and a review of all these figures in a moment. But just to have a little bit of a rant about definitions of scale, which is something that again, if you're a follower of my channel, you will know, really, really bugs me. I quite accept that if you have a representation of a human figure, whether it's in 15 mil or 28 mil or 25 mil, whatever it is, it's quite reasonable for the size of the human figure to vary. The fact that it doesn't vary within any range, there are very few ranges that actually do give you variable heights of figures. The variation you will get is between one range and another. That is a bit more problematic, really, because people come in all sizes. They don't come in a variety of two. So if you want to mix two ranges together, it looks just as odd to me. It just looks wrong to me. However, human beings do vary in size, so you can accept that. What doesn't vary in size is standard equipment, so muskets, rifles, packs, and most of all, vehicles. So I'll put that 15 mil Peter Pig panhard back on the table and put next to it the Butler's printed model. You can see immediately they are completely different sizes. You could almost say they were a different range. They are both sold as being 15mm scale. One of these is wrong. The panhard was a set size. It had fixed dimensions. It's a simple matter to convert that down to a scale, whatever the scale is. Again, you might be into this whole argument about, well, what is 15mm actually measuring? Is it measuring from the feet to the top of the head or the feet to the eyes? It just really winds me up. It really does. It's far too late now, for us wargamers to actually, put a stop to all this variation. You just have to accept that you have a range, you like the figures, so you have to go with their definition of what the scale is. But why there can't be an industry standard, I don't know. And it shouldn't be the vertical sort of definition of the scale. It should really be the horizontal definition. It makes it far easier. So if you say, on the horizontal, if from point A to point B is a certain distance, then you produce a figure, say it's a yard, you produce a figure that looks as though it's a yard and a half tall or something like that, or maybe no taller than that, 2 yards tall, 6 foot tall, and that looks reasonable, and then you can have variations within that. So why sculptors and figure producers don't sort of look at the horizontal scale and then to gauge the correct proportion for the height of a figure? I don't know. But when it comes to aircraft or model ships, or tanks or armor cars or whatever, they were all a set dimension, so there shouldn't be any variation between one range and another if both those ranges are supposed to be the same scale. And the irony of this as well is that I've always thought of Peter Pig as being quite a small interpretation. Anyway, they're figures of I'll show you in a future video, because I'm painting some 15mm figures alongside some other ones at the moment that's supposed to be 15mm, and the Peter Pig are definitely smaller. So that makes this Butler's printed models definition smaller again. It's gonna be all right. They're not going to look too bad, on the table, but there's no excuse for that. There is with figures to an extent. There's no excuse with things like vehicles. Anyway, that's the end of my rant. So I'll just give you a quick tour around all the vehicles I painted up, a little bit closer detail. So these are the panhards. You might begin to notice, now I've zoomed in a little bit, lots of little, sort of remains from trying to get all the supports off, damage that I did to them, little bits that stick out that just impossible to get off. It's not like normal, it doesn't seem to be like normal 3D prints where often supports will break off quite cleanly. This just leaves a real, mess. And if you try and do any highlighting or anything like that, with these ones, I tried to dry brush a bit of a dust effect on them, and it's picked out the the sort of mess even more. In the back there, you got the 3 crocodiles. Not a very popular vehicle with the troops it transported, apparently, but I think it's nice. Sort of, it's got a lot of character, I think, as a model. So quite happy with those. And then you got the 3-peated pig. They call bulldogs. I'm calling buffaloes there. They are metal, obviously, and consist of about, 5 or 6 different parts that you have to glue together. Very hard to put them together. You have to do a lot of filing, a lot of grinding down underneath. One of them I managed to get it stuck, so I couldn't get it apart in time before the glue set, and it's a little bit wonky. Had to do a bit of a sort of bodge with some bits of cardboard and things underneath to make it look, and you can make out which one it is. I'm not sure, not too easily, but you can tell because it's slightly crooked. But from this distance, you're not to know really. And I like it as a vehicle. I think it's a really nice model. And then in the front there, you got the 3 ferrets. Same thing applies. Lots of messy bits on them, mainly underneath, thankfully, so they don't show like this. But definitely go for resin if you're going to buy from Butler's printed models. Right, I think that is everything. Had a bit of a rant about scale, definition, about the state of affairs at QRF. But believe it or not, I'm in quite a good mood at the moment, and quite happy with the state of affairs and life in general. Just things like that. I can't help remarking on it. Don't like glossing over things that are fixable that people just don't fix. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. See you on the next video. Bye for now.